Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I just want to talk about New Year's a little bit. I did a video on the theme of the year on my other channel yesterday on the Normal Pockets of the Future channel. And I was going to make a regular video today, but my wife and I just sort of, it was kind of a cold, gray day out. We just kind of hung out and spent time together, watched TV. So it's kind of like a day off, but I just wanted to say these things while they were sort of fresh on my mind. So, New Year's is a weird celebration. All holidays are. When you're looking from the outside in, they're kind of strange, right? So when I was in India, there was a holiday called Diwali, which is it's some sort of a festival of lights. It has an association with light, which a lot of, there's these light festivals or light holidays all around the world, especially around the winter solstice when there's not as much light or something. But it's very, you have those luminarias, which I really like in the southwestern part of the country, where people would put, I guess it would be Mexican people would put, take a paper bag with some sand in it, put candles in it, and have this nice glow to it. And my family and I, when my kids were small, did that 1 year, maybe 2 years. But it looks really nice. There's these different things. But they're all kind of arbitrary. And at some point in India, Diwali became about fireworks, kind of like 4th of July, but way worse. And for about a week, fireworks are going off all the time. And on the day itself, people would light these fireworks off with just mindlessly. Like my family and I were walking back to our flat, and we walked around the corner, and some fireworks went off. And there was a woman, she was just walking back into her house. She went out like an old woman, like she was 67, probably 70 years old. And she lit fireworks on the street and then just walked back into her house. And there was images, I don't know if somebody sent me them, I don't know how whatever it was, but of people and, cows with their jaws blown off and things because people would just light, fireworks in the middle of the street. And not just not something like the Roman candle type of things you see on the 4th of July, but M80 type things, right? Just really stupid stuff. And they would do it until 4 in the morning. So it was a week of just, waking up from fireworks and just, loud. And they weren't it wasn't really about light because there's only a flash. It's more about a bang, it's about sound. And, just something that wasn't there became something, that was arbitrarily added. Somebody started lighting off fireworks and then it became firecrackers and then it just, devolves from there. There's also an Indian holiday where they throw paint on each other. You're supposed to wear a white, suit or whatever, and anybody can come up and randomly throw powdered paint at you, which is, not that fun, right? And when my family and I were in Sri Lanka, there was a holiday, and I don't know what it was for. And people were, these store owners, you'd walk up and down these shopping areas, and store owners and restaurant owners would just hand out ice cream and treats, cheap candy kind of stuff, kind of like Halloween, but, in a different way. And, how these holidays came about and, how they transform over time. Of course, Christmas is transformed and changed over the years and, new traditions are added to it. And so I haven't been a big holiday person. I get into the celebration. I talked about some of the things more than others. But the New Year's celebration has always been kind of arbitrary for me. I never understood the dropping of the ball. And I didn't really feel like any different, like it was a new year. New Year is celebrated at different times in different calendars across the globe. And now it's just kind of all become January 1st, right? The end of December. But that's just arbitrary. There is a year, but the year isn't really a year because it takes 365 days and 6 hours and 9 minutes. One of the things about the round earth model, and again, I don't want to hear any flat earth bullshit, right? But one of the things about the round earth model is that the rotation of the earth isn't measured in days. We measure it in days, but it's not really measured in days because days have nothing to do with us rotating around the sun. which is one of the selling points of the round Earth model. If you're looking for one, if you have some doubt in it, that it takes 365 days, 6 hours, and 9 minutes to rotate around the Earth. That's why they have to have a leap year to compensate. And the leap year doesn't totally compensate because 6 hours and 9 minutes isn't 1/4 of a day, right? A day is 24 hours. It would be just 6 hours, right? So we have an extra 9 minutes that eventually they're going to have to deal with, or you're going to have it be off by, it's going to add a day every so often or whatever it is, or lose a day, I don't know, one way or the other. The Earth's rotation that explains a 24-hour day, and the Earth's rotation around the sun explains a year, and they don't have anything to do with each other, right? We have time being in hours, right? But we could have it be in longer chunks. It could be it doesn't have to be 24 hours. It could be divided in some other way, right? It's just the way that we choose to do it. But the length of the day has nothing to do with the length of the year. But anyways, it's just all kind of arbitrary, and the ball dropping is kind of arbitrary as well. So I never really got into New Year's all that much. I didn't even go out that much. I didn't really love to drink. Like, I don't remember alcohol really enhancing any time that I had. Maybe some concerts or some things, but I don't remember like the intake of alcohol making my day better, right? And so when I quit drinking, it was, I think mostly a relief. And as I've gotten older, I don't care about going out and being social. So usually it's about when my normal bedtime is, and now it's a little bit later than it was in years past. I used to go to bed, around 10, and now sometimes I go to bed between like 12 and 1. And it changes at different times. And so my wife and I were up last night, and we decided to watch a little bit of the festivities on the television. And I was flipping back and forth. I should say this, that before we watched whatever was going on in terms of the coverage of the new year, we watched Y2K. It's like an hour and a half documentary on HBO, and it wasn't great, but it was kind of interesting. Like, there was interesting things about it. I'm glad we watched it. I wouldn't say it was probably got 3.5 thumbs up or 3.5 stars out of 5. But, it was okay, but it was interesting because of, I didn't do anything for Y2K. I didn't know very much about computers. I wasn't watching the news, and I didn't own a TV when that happened. Pretty sure I didn't own a TV. And so I was almost oblivious to Y2K. Like, I kind of knew it would exist, but I didn't do anything. Like, if Y2K was a thing, I would have ended up in a FEMA camp, right? Like, assuredly, I would have ended up in a FEMA camp. And, of course, it was a, thing that wasn't a big deal. 2012, I didn't put much stock into that because of, the Mayan calendar thing was interesting to me, but whatever. And, I've always felt that the system's going to collapse, but it won't be because it won't be on a thing there won't be a big day that we are prepared for. There might be warnings ahead of time, and there should be plenty of warnings now, but I never believed it would be on something where people would know about it ahead of time because it kind of defeats the whole purpose. My wife had watched some other truthers that were covering the leave the world behind as a way to sell products as well as a way to sell. I guess they were saying Mark Zuckerberg has some, food that's, people are always looking for the angle, right, in the truth community. But I was saying that's a stupid angle because people will watch a movie like that, and maybe a few people will, they'll talk about it, and they'll think about doing something, and then other stuff will happen. A world event will happen, another movie, another, whatever. Like, things only have a shelf life of about 2-3 weeks, usually a week or less, even a news event, and then people move on to something else. There's so much going on. And if people did run out and buy some toilet paper or canned goods, it's not something that, would be an economic boon. It would be stupid to make a movie. I mean, it didn't seem like that at all. I wouldn't, I think it's more likely that they have to warn people without warning them, right? Which is just like, we've seen this before with the predictive programming again. Maybe it's to bring people's collective minds into some kind of way of creating an event. The collapse is already happening. My wife and I are watching the prequels. We watched the second prequel to the Yellowstone program, and we were watching the first prequel, the 1899 one, which involves a wagon train. Like going across from Texas to which eventually would be Montana in a wagon train. And there's a group of foreign people who, they don't carry guns, they don't believe in guns, and they don't have the necessary skills to survive the wagon train. Like, that's a big theme of the show. And I was saying to my wife, yeah, but all those people have way more skills than the rest of us, like all of us living at this time, right? And so the collapse has already happened because of how bad humanity is, how immoral people are, how selfish, how entitled, how unnatural, how weak, how disconnected, how the family's broken down. The collapse has already happened because of that. Because people like this, the kids growing up today can't sustain a workforce and carry a civilization, right? The hardworking people that, once built America no longer exist. And now as it falls, not just America, but this, our modern day civilization. And as our civilization falls apart, you see this in ancient civilizations that the people that built the civilization have a certain sort of energy, and there's a certain hunger, and there's a certain, they come with a lot of motivation. And then people get weak and soft and entitled, and they just watch their civilization fall apart, right? And they don't know how to fix it. It's almost harder to fix it than it was to build it in the first place. And so the collapse has already happened in all these different, variables and things that's already taken place. So it's just a matter of when it kicks in. But anyways, I, was flipping through the channels and I watched the country music. They had one out of Nashville on CBS, which was the best one, which is kind of weird for me because I don't really like country music and I don't know many of the country music singers. And then they had Dick Clark's New Year's Rocking Eve. And then I watched a little bit of the CNN with Anderson Cooper and his buddy there, who I guess were able to drink again after last year having to not drink any alcohol, which defeated the whole purpose because it was them acting like drunk fools that made it entertaining. But the country music was by far the best. It just had better energy, less, it was just less offensive visually and just less, it was more, down to earth. But like 10 minutes before the ball dropped, there were a couple of songs, one by this guy, Morgan Wallen. I think that's how you say his name. And I'd heard one other song from him, and he played this song. I guess it was the number one country music song. And it has like a hip-hop beat. And it's almost like, almost rap-esque. And I'm like, what's happened to country music? I know I'd heard a couple of professional basketball players were talking about listening to Morgan Wallen before the finals games. Some of the players on the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler and some of the, whatever it was, they were listening to a Morgan Wallen song. I didn't know who it was at the time. But it's got sort of a hip-hop kind of a beat. And then there's another group that followed that, which was called maybe Hardy. I think it was called Hardy. And that song had a little bit of a hip-hop beat to start off with. And then they were doing something that looked a lot like hair metal as the song progressed at the end. And I was like, what is going on with country music? And then they rolled out Leonard Skinner. Leonard Skinner, like it was it the Van Zandt brothers? I mean, this is back when I was, in my high school years. And the number of the members of the band, they were like brothers or family, have died. And they just keep on pulling out another relative, when they to sing Freebird or Sweet Home Alabama or whatever. And so that was the country music one. New Year's Rocking Eve, now hosted by Ryan Seacrest, who was a lot weirder than I remember. And they had Megan Thee Stallion, and that was just unwatchable. And then we tuned it on to Anderson Cooper and, whatever his name is that's with him. And that was really horrible. Anderson Cooper called his buddy Sweetie at one point. And I was like, it's changed a lot. Like, since when I grew up, what I'm watching here is everything has changed, and most of it's not for the better. Like some of it, maybe it's more modern. I never really understood the ball dropping. Like, I don't get it. I don't like it. It doesn't mean anything to me. That moment where there's this moment of joy where people are screaming and celebrating. I've never felt anything. Me and my wife kissed after when the ball dropped, and like there was a moment right after that where I had the thought, it's 2024, and I had a brief, like, just a second of panic, maybe even less than a second, but it was a small moment of panic. And I don't know if it was panic because something bad is going to happen in 2024, or like I just realized it's 2024. And like, when I was a younger person, that seemed so long away. That seemed like, we would never come to, we'd never be in the 2020s or whatever it is. And of course we are. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the year of the amateur, which I talked about in my other channel yesterday. And so, Happy New Year. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing for the Apocalaughtic and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.